And we're back right where we left off. Now, this one is going to be a relatively short video, namely because I just want to clean up a few things and get ready for putting in the petroleum boiler. Um, the last video we did actually do a lot of really annoying stuff where it was just watching things get dug out. So what I want to do is just start skipping those bits. I'll queue up the commands. I'll show you everything I'm building and queuing up, but then we'll just skip forward until they're done, and I can cut back in at any point if I find something that needs to be done. Now, for the time being, though, what I want to do is I want to get all the water that ended up in the oil biome out of there as quickly as possible before it turns into steam and becomes a problem for me. And for the rest of the video, I just want to cover, well, the bits I want to talk through, I'm going to cover some questions that were asked, things that I missed basically, or things I didn't explain very well. The first thing I want to explain is the power switch over here. This was brought up to me by Cohen in the comments. He just asked me why I didn't just hook up this automation. Instead of hooking the automation up to the switch, why didn't I just hook it directly up to the transformer? Well, that's to do with how transformers react when you disable them with automation. The problem is transformers actually contain power, 4 kilojoules. For reference, smart batteries can contain 20 kilojoules. So they actually do store a lot of power in them. And if you hook up an automation switch to them and turn them off, that power is then lost. So see that bar there? That will completely drop. So you effectively just delete the power. So if you turn off a transformer, you've effectively lost a bunch of stored electricity that you could have used. So instead, I just use a power switch. Now, this is just something that I've been doing for so long, I forgot it was even a thing. I just completely blanked it. So the only reason you might actually have for turning off a power transformer with automation instead of using a power switch would be if you want to prevent the heat. While these things give off 1 kilojoule of heat, or one was it? Yeah, 1,000 DTUs of heat. I just refer to 1,000 DTUs as 1 unit of heat. For example, a battery here gives off half a unit of heat, so they do give off a fair chunk of heat. So sometimes you might want to turn them off, but normally if you've got a decent cooling solution like this, you don't have to care too much. Um, Lumen pointed out in the comments that the reason this was still able to vent, even though it was surrounded by high pressure gases, it's actually venting a liquid. CO2 geysers give off liquid CO2, not actual gas. Didn't twig that myself. I thought it was actually a gas vent, but it's so rare you're going to be using these. Who cares? But it's good to know actually that how they work. Now, the next one was ghost piping. Yeah, when I'm doing my piping up here, I have a tendency to. Is that gold? Yes, that is gold. I have a tendency to lay them adjacent to each other when I'm using different piping types and then connect them afterwards. But it was pointed out to me if you just actually place the pipes as ghosts, ghost pipes can't overwrite other ghost pipes. So the reason I was getting these overwrites in the past that was making me paranoid was I would be queuing up pipes, and then when I went to add in more pipes, the pipes had already been finished by my dupes who were very motivated, and that resulted in me ending up with, well, pipes overwriting each other. So long as you pause the game and place down the pipes, or even if you don't pause the game, so long as the pipes haven't been built yet, ghosts can't overwrite ghosts. Now, one thing I want to do here is I'm going to just throw in a few pieces of gold along here, just to improve the thermal conductivity. Now, I ragged a bit on iron being a terrible conductor. Iron radiant pipes, they're not actually a terrible conductor, to be honest. I was being a bit facetious there. If we just look at the gold pipes here, we can see the thermal conductivity is 120, which is amazingly good. Iron has 110, so they're not terrible. They're pretty close to each other. There's going to be very few situations where you need that much conductivity that it's going to make a huge difference. But I do like to use iron instead, namely because it's normally so abundant. However, on this map, it has not been as abundant as I would have liked. We are going to disable that building, and we're going to disable that one. These are my two iron producers, namely because if we look up here, my iron ore is down to 32 tons, where my gold amalgam is at 125 tons. That's kind of mental. There just was an awful lot of slime biomes around. In fact, what I'm going to do here is get rid of you and queue up a second gold amalgam. One thing I also want to do is I want to let the dupes catch up on everything because they haven't been able to get around to their stocking duties, as in stocking up these bins. What's been happening is I've had all my dupes running around doing project after project after project. What I really should do once every 2 or 3 projects is let them catch up on the stocking commands. The dogs' bodies just can't keep up. There's only three dogs' bodies, 2 out, 1 in, and there's literally not enough manpower to stock up everything that needs stocking. Now, another question that was asked was a little bit about what's going on over here with this gold volcano. And this was from I am Coldfoot. He was just wondering what the steam turbine was doing there versus the Aqua Tuner, what was actually providing the cooling. This is really to do with how steam turbines have been so heavily modified in the last patch. What happens now is when you run steam through a steam turbine, 90% of the steam heat that it's destroying is converted into energy. The other 10% is converted into heat given off by this top part of the steam turbine. And what this causes you to balance is if the steam turbine goes above 100 C up here, 100 Celsius, the steam turbine will stop working. So this forces you to put in some sort of cooling solution to keep your steam turbine cool. If you run the steam turbine at say 125 degrees of steam going through it, it will produce a lot less heat than if you run it flat out at 200 degrees Celsius steam going through it. So what kind of cooling solution you put in there would depend on how much steam you're putting through it, how hot it is, that kind of thing, which forces you to do an awful lot of thinking. Or if you're lazy like me, all I do is I pair every single steam turbine with an Aqua Tuner. And then I just run the Aqua Tuner to provide some sort of cooling somewhere. And then I usually recirculate that cooling through the steam turbine itself to keep it cool. So I like to think of this as a sort of a symbiotic relationship. Because what will happen is the steam turbine will basically be fed heat by the Aqua Tuner itself. This helps you recycle the heat coming off the Aqua Tuner, which turns it into energy, which helps pay for the running of the Aqua Tuner, while the Aqua Tuner at the same time is cooling down the steam turbine so it won't overheat. This means I don't have to figure out if I should put X amount of wheezeworts in here or run a cooling solution with polluted water or something along those lines. I just chuck a thermal Aqua Tuner right underneath every steam turbine and then just recirculate the chill. This here is just recirculating the chill, and the Aqua Tuner here is just cooling this icebox. Now, I'm not sure how much of this icebox I really need here based on how I designed this, but this was the design I'd come up with before, and I was trying to get this done. So normally what this would do is this would also provide cooling. This icebox we're running down here would also provide cooling to the gold that ends up down here. The hot gold is going to hit this plate. All the heat down to about 150 degrees will be eaten by the steam turbine. And then the gold that gets spit out down here will be about 150 degrees. And normally what I do is I'd leave it sit there for a day in the cool water while this icebox provides the chill. And then after a day of sitting here, I dump it into the conveyor loader and send it off. I didn't really need that in this instance because I had this cooling chamber down here. Now, now over here we have the other steam turbine heat deletion device I built, and it's pretty much the exact same thing. The Aqua Tuner here is passing the cold water up here to help cool down the steam turbine, which makes sure this never overheats. But it's also doing double duty by actually cooling down this icebox, which is chilling our clean water. So you're basically combining a heat deletion device with a chilling device. They work so well together that I can't really think of a scenario where you'd want a steam turbine where you wouldn't want an Aqua Tuner right beside it. If you knew it was only going to be deleting tiny amounts of heat, you could get away with a few wheezeworts and something like that. That might be an option. But personally, I like to go with an Aqua Tuner and a power-based solution. That's pretty much my main go-to plan for resolving all heat issues. It may not be the most efficient in all cases, but it's just simple. And once you get used to building them, you can get faster and faster at doing it. Though these newer designs, I'm taking a little bit of time to iron out the kinks. But after a while, I'll be able to throw one of these together in a few cycles. Now, when I was digging out down here, Jacob in the comments asked me, why didn't I just use robo miners? Or could I have used robo miners? And that I used to do that in the past. I was quite fond of it. The problem is it's these plants here, thimbleweed. In my last playthrough, I demolished huge chunks of the map using auto miners, and they killed all the thimbleweed. They basically mined out everything. So in this instance, I've been leaving all the reed fiber behind because I want that reed fiber later for when we get into space. I want to use that reed fiber to make insulation. How much insulation I'm going to need, I don't know, but I'd prefer to have as much reed fiber coming in free as possible. As well as that, I'm leaving all the pinch peppernut plants alive, as many as I possibly can. The reason I want to keep all those peppernuts alive is 2 of these, combined with some raw meat, can make enough barbecue to feed 1 duplicant for a day. So, well, indefinitely, so long as I have enough raw meat coming in. So these 2 pepper plants here mean I can feed 1 duplicant with barbecue. These 2 over here, that's another one. These 2 over here, that's another one. These 2 over here, that's another one. Leaving these all behind just means later in the game it's going to make churning out barbecue very simple. I don't need to put together a pinch of peppernut farm. I don't have to worry about getting the right enough polluted water to feed them, anything like that. Nope. Just grow them wild. It just saves an awful lot on water and a little bit of inconvenience as well. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to actually get rid of all this polluted oxygen. I have just been letting the slime off gas to provide pressure so that, well, my base doesn't have to worry about things like, well, the outside of my base doesn't have to worry about things like, well, gas pressure. This is going to force all the gases up or down, and it just, well, it makes it cleaner. As well as this, at some point I am going to expand my little centralized base, and I'm actually going to expand it from the outside. As in, I'm going to build the walls outside and then eventually let the dupes in the exosuits build the walls outside. Then I'm going to go inside the base and crack open those walls once all the slime lung is gone. And that will allow me to, well, expand my base without risks of slime lung or any interaction with the outside environment. Just a little standard I use. Now, I also want to turn up the priority here. I made a big mistake when I was doing this. I accidentally made all of these out of igneous rock, all these ladder segments, which was very, very sloppy of me. There's not a lot of igneous rock in this area, so they have to run large distances to replace it. Kind of silly on my part. Uh, so there's some igneous rock over here, so I'm going to crank up the priority so they get to that first. That should cut down on their travel distance a bit and let me clean up this area a little bit faster. Now, while they're doing all of that, I got to put down some deodorizers. Oh, God, I hate that overlay. Actually, that's also a bad overlay. Okay, that should clear up most of the polluted oxygen, except for those pieces around there. It seems to form layers, this stuff. I haven't quite figured out the mechanics of it yet. All right. Now, after I've caught up with everything, what I'm going to want to do is crack open the oil biome and finish this, or not crack open the oil biome, but finish this petroleum boiler. I'm going to do a little prep work here as well, and I'm going to queue that up, and then I'm just going to skip forward in time. There's no point actually watching them build all this stuff. The only downsides of building this petroleum boiler is I'm actually really hemmed in. I've got a piece of neutronium over here that's got a polluted oxygen vent that I can't do anything with. I can't move these oil reservoirs, and I don't really want to build it over on this side because it's going to block my ladder system. So I kind of have to try and squeeze it in here, and I've been roughing it out just using ghost blocks, just in between playthroughs to see roughly where I can fit it. I'm going to have to squish it up a bit and maybe not use the most perfect design, but it should work-ish, hopefully. We'll have to see how that works out. Yeah, I want to put all that there, and I'm going to probably want to increase this in here or increase the size here. That wall should be across there. So I'm just going to cut this forward in time for now and wait until all of these are done. There's no point hanging around and watching all of this. It's all just going to be boring building and digging. Though I should point out that was it. The duplicate choices later in the game. I go up to about 6 tinkerers. Now this is something I wasn't too sure about. It was more a case of when duplicates are operating these machines up here, they can't run them constantly because once you complete a build, it spits out the crude oil or the heat, the coolant, and while that's happening, you can't actually run the machine. So they'll hop onto a machine, activate it, start using it, and then once they've completed their little animation here where they're standing in front of it, bobbing back and forth. Let's check out their skills here. What's the tinkering on that one? 15. Oof. Okay, well, they can do it quite quickly. So then what happens is they run off because the machine's no longer usable, and they go and try and find another machine that's usable, like, say, the oil refinery or something along those lines. If that's not usable, then they'll run off and start taking part in digging and construction. But what happens then is this machine becomes available again, and another duplicate's going to come along, and they'll probably have to run back from wherever they were digging and constructing. What I kind of want to achieve is have enough tinkerers that when all of these are operating, there's always a machine free. So when they finish with one machine, they hop over to another machine, and then they hop back to a different machine, and they just end up running around this industrial brick most of the time. I think 6 was a little bit too many, but worst case scenario, I can always move them out of tinkering if needs be. And we'll just leave that there for now, and I'll skip forward in time now. Oh, I totally forgot to catch this fish. I pulled it back up again without actually catching it. Oh well, I'll get him now. Ooh, spot the mistake there. Oops. Yeah, let's replace that now. I was just doing a little bit of looking around the oil biome when I realized there was this. Seems this point of interest building has overwritten some abyssalite and it's getting pretty toasty down here. Very, very toasty. I need to get in here and stop this from happening. At the same time, I can also stop that security door from going mental. Okay, let's go dig this rock and let's get down here pretty damn quick. How are we going to get in here without spilling oil everywhere? We'll go in this way. And we'll deconstruct a bunch of this junk. And we'll build a ladder down here. I'm also going to want to mop up all of this, and we're going to have to make it a high priority. I need to seal this off so that this This magma is not going to cause any problems. How I can do this? Actually, I'll deconstruct the bricks above it and then allow me to do the ones underneath. And let's make these a higher priority. Actually, I want to get these done sooner rather than later. This could become a problem if I leave it unchecked. Well, I may have accidentally missed that Dig Dug here is now fully qualified to start wearing exosuits. So that's our 16th dupe all up and running and into exosuits. Now I'm going to assign out the skill points for all of these, but I'm going to fast forward the hell out of it because, well, all these dupes really need is a few points in whatever they're going to be using, and then I've started putting them into field research as well, or research, so because the research actually helps their ability to gain skills, which means if they're using stuff that gives them strength, they'll eventually get stronger and stronger at it. You can go there, you can go there, to go for. Okay, time for you to get out of the gym. Perfect. I had some weird pathing issues where the duplicants wouldn't come in here, but I managed to get rid of all of those. I've got the junk out of the way, and now I'm just going to throw in a couple of insulated tiles here. Damn, that is hot. Come on. Come on. Nope, there's one left. Come back here. Actually, what priority? I got to set those 6. Come on, dupes. Just one more brick. One more brick and we can seal that off. This has turned this entire place to 250 degrees in some places, and a lot of these slicksters, you'll see there, they're turning into molten slicksters. For some people, this is great. For me, I personally would prefer just regular slicksters. I don't like all that petroleum messing up my oil biome. Yeah. Also, I'm going to be running a petroleum boiler, so it doesn't really matter if I have crude oil or not, or if I have petroleum or not. I can make it all pretty much easily. And yeah, you're going back for lunch? Seriously? You're halfway through. Just finish. Anyway, I'm going to finish this off, and then actually want to go over some of the hatches. My calories are not going up as much as I'd like, or staying as high as I'd like. And I just like to point out a few minor quirks that could probably be worked on if you're going to implement hatches yourself. Ah, there we go at last. Now, if we look at my calories here, I'm up to about 200,000 calories. About 68,000 of that are in omelets. I've still got about 94,000 calories left of bristleberries from the start of the game. Some mushrooms, some lice loaf. Actually, we should probably fry up those mushrooms. Don't need them, but might as well fry them. Now, if you'll notice here, most of these are still full. 7, 7, 7, 7, and the one down here is at 4. The reason for that, I believe, is distance. What's happening is a hatch will die in here, so they'll turn on the incubator. But then while that incubator is on, another hatch over here or something like that will die. So when the incubator finishes up, the hatch ends up getting taken to one of the closer ranches. What I should really do is maybe move this incubator and put it across from here. So that will feed these two hatcheries, and then have this incubator somewhere up here, or maybe even here. And that would make sure that it would prioritize these 3 hatches. The duplicants are going to take the newly hatched hatchling to whichever ranch is closer to the incubators. That's why this one here is ending up just a little bit shy, and it's messing with the numbers just a little bit. It's not crippling. I'm still keeping up with food production. I'm still fine. It's just maybe a little quirk if you want to really maximize and minimize how much you're getting out of your ranches. Now, another thing I set this up to do, but I haven't really gotten around to, I haven't found a nice time to switch over, would be you can use this to start making barbecue quite handily. These auto sweepers have full access to this entire area. So what you can do is stick in a conveyor loader and have this pick up all the eggs. Then what would happen is you could have the eggs all dropped over, say, here, and have them drop down in here and put in some water. What will happen is the eggs will drop down here, and then they'll sit there for 20 cycles until they hatch. And when they do hatch, the hatchlings can't jump. They can't jump 1 square, or can they? Well, if they can jump 1 square, I'll just make this I would have just made this 2 tiles higher. So they'd be trapped in the water, they'd drown, they'd turn into meat, which I could then turn into barbecue. Additionally, what I do is I'd stick in a little auto sweeper right about there, and that would mean if I needed another egg, all that would happen is the auto sweeper here would pick an egg up out of here and dump it into whichever incubator switched on. So that way I could automate the eggs moving into the incubators, and I could automate the termination of the hatches so I can turn them into actual meat. Now, I'd want to probably do it slowly and move over like a few hatchlings at a time, or 1 or 2 ranches at a time. but I'm not going to be bothered doing that. I'm kind of happy with the omelets at the moment. And if we look at the morale, because of all the decor we've got in, I mean, everyone's like, I think the highest morale requirement is 22 for Tinkerdog. Anyone else? No. And I'm getting most of that from decor. I mean, everyone here is in the 20s, except for Beastie. Beastie, why are you at 15? You must have eaten something you shouldn't have. Oh, you missed a lunch shift. Actually, I might want to start changing around my scheduling. I just realized some of them are moving quite far now for like all the way to the edges of the oil biome, which is messing with their ability to get to lunch on time. So I'll have to give them an extra downtime slot. It's gonna mess. Well, it's gonna mess with my productivity just a little bit, but you usually end up about here late game. It's just to do with the distances you're going to have to travel. Unless you start specializing and building certain areas closer to where you're going to be working, you're going to probably want to go up to 4 downtime slots. I've never found a reason to go to 5 yet, but I'm not going to say that's not a possibility. Also, I can remove that brick. That brick over here is actually keeping all that CO2 in there. If you'll notice, actually, I don't have any airflow tiles throughout my base. All the CO2 from all these areas is just flowing down here. It gets down there eventually, and it doesn't really end up with that much bad gas floating around the place. So let's go with gases. See, there's little bits of carbon dioxide, but it generally just floats down, gets out of my way. You don't need all those airflow tiles. Those airflow tiles are only necessary if you're running a couple of coal generators up there. Coal generators kick out an enormous amount of carbon dioxide, but the same as, is it 10 dupes or is it 20 dupes? Let's find out. Carbon dioxide, 20 grams a second. An average dupe, if we can find one. Seriously, I have a load of dupes. Where are they? An average dupe here, it puts out 2 grams a second. So yeah, each coal generator spits out enough CO2 that it's equal to 10 duplicants. So if you've got coal generators up here, you're going to need to put in airflow tiles. Since I don't have coal generators, I don't need the airflow tiles, and everything ends up down there eventually. Unless I put a block there to stop the polluted water I thought was going to be coming out of these, in which case this carbon dioxide has ended up over here. But that in the next few cycles, it'll drift down there, and the carbon skimmer will eat it all. Another thing I appear to have forgotten was to put in paintings. I meant to put these in ages ago, but I ran out of reed fiber. So we'll just replace those there now. Oops. I could also put in a few extra bits and bobs like those roof pieces. What the hell do we call them? Corner moldings and crown moldings. I'm just not bothered. Everything's good enough as it is, and everyone's getting enough decor that I don't really mind too much. Though I will actually put in a few extra statues around here. Made of granite, of course, because making them out of anything but granite would be silly. No one would do that. And that'll just help perk up the decor around those areas. We still haven't actually stocked up on everything yet, unfortunately. All the duplicants are catching up at stocking up all the igneous rock. These hatches have been busily munching through it all quite happily. But we are up to 330 tons of coal. Kind of nice, not gonna lie. Once you get into hatches and start making coal, suddenly coal becomes something you're swimming in for the whole game. You'll probably end up with about 400 or 500 tons by the end before I phase out the hatches, I'll be about 400 or 500 tons. I also forgot to enable this gold machine so that I could make more gold. I really do want a lot of gold. I'm probably going to go up to about 100 tons of gold before I stop, simply because gold is just so incredibly useful. And I will never stop producing steel so long as I have access to something to make lime out of, which, yeah, I'm running out of that too. Okay, we'll cut out here again. So the gold volcano is finally coming off cooldown. As you can see, the gold just plops straight down here. Metal door absorbs it, dumps it into this room. Now this hasn't hit steam yet, but eventually it will heat up enough to turn into steam, at which point we can delete it with the steam turbine, and the Aqua Tuner can provide the cooling for the steam turbine. It's literally that simple. Now, M. Ovidiu, he pointed out that the reason that polluted oxygen got in there was when I actually dug this out, I dug out this little corner tile here, and then I left all the rest in. So when I actually sealed this in and vacuumed it out, there was a little pocket of polluted oxygen right in here in the corner where I dug it out at the start. So when I dug the rest of the volcano out to actually examine it, what would happen was that little pocket of polluted oxygen there spread out in this room. Very silly of me, but yeah, that's kind of what happened. Also, Kevin in the comments pointed out that I made the last of these automation wires here. These ones here, I made them out of iron instead of making them out of steel. Yeah, that was sloppy of me. But this design, that's really more of a safety precaution. In this design, I'm pretty sure these doors should never go above about 150 to 200 degrees. So I'm going to leave it for now and not worry about it because I don't want to have to break this vacuum room open, but if it does become a problem in future, I may need to modify that. But I think it should be pretty okay. Now, one thing I do want to cover down here is, oh, actually, I'm going to deconstruct some buildings over here so I can seal this sucker off. I do want to cover how to actually mop liquids that get in the wrong places. It's going to happen to everyone at some point where you end up getting liquid somewhere on top of another piece of material, and you don't want that liquid being there. We'll also cancel that. So how do you get rid of that? Well, it's actually not that bad. Mesh tiles. For example, down here we have crude oil. Sitting on top of it we have petroleum, and sitting on top of that we have water that somehow managed to get into my oil biome and mess everything up. So all I'm going to do is, say, grab some gold amalgam here. I'm just going to put down some mesh tiles. Those mesh tiles will act as a floor, so I'm just going to skip forward until they've actually got this built. But I should be able to mop these because they're then technically on top of a floor. Okay, very proud of how motivated those dupes are. So let's just get a level 6 mop command here. Oh, can't mop those. See, I can mop the petroleum now because it's technically on top of a floor, so you're able to mop floors. Now, I know there's actually crude oil in here in these tiles, but that's not a problem. As you can see, they're mopping it up. And not only are they mopping it up, the water above is falling down, at which point it also gets mopped up as well. So this allows you to just, well, clean up areas that get covered in gunk. I can also use this exact same method on my polluted water tank. It's got a little layer of clean water on top of it. Now that layer of clean water is actually stopping it from off-gassing, which is not a bad thing. But I would prefer to not have that clean water sitting on top there. I kind of want to get rid of that because it just doesn't suit me. So I'll probably put a layer of mesh tiles there, at least temporarily, to mop that up at some point. But for the time being, it can stay there. It's not actually causing any problems. But now I've managed to clean up that area there, and I could do a similar thing all the way along and get rid of all the petroleum, though not really that useful. Oh, there's still some water there. Get rid of that. Is that petroleum? Yep, get rid of that too. And we also have a piece of oxygen up there that needs to go. That will allow it to actually escape its little trap, and it should be able to pop up here and get out of the way. And I still have not sealed that off. Well, there's all these little things that catch up on you when you're not actually paying attention. I also want to mop that water out of there before I seal this off. I'm going to actually seal this across the top here, and then this area out here is all going to become part of my outside the oil biome, and this down here is going to be the inside of the oil biome. So I'm going to cut across here. I just want a little bit more room for this petroleum boiler. Though, do I really want to leave that Dreco in there? You know what? No matter what I do, the Drecos end up everywhere. I'll just leave them there. I need to make a Dreco drop-off station so I can actually put them away somewhere. Just not yet. And I'm going to mop you as well. Come on. Excellent. And that gets that water out of there as well. So I can seal that sucker up, and there's nothing but carbon dioxide in there. Now, one of the last things I'm going to do before I get around to finishing this all off and just getting rid of this minor video of minor changes is just I'm going to change all of the priorities in these down to level 3. I want to have the priorities of all these storage bins that I've got active requests on as opposed to sweep onlys. So I want the igneous rock bins up here, and I want all my ore storages down here pretty much all around the same level at level 3. That way they'll all get actioned at the same time. So I've also lowered the requests on the clay and the coal down here to level 3 as well. The only ones I haven't changed are the coal storage bins. I want them to be still around the right level because, well, I want coal near those coal generators at all times. Now, I'm going to cut this out here. Next video is going to be me actually building the petroleum boiler. It was just, I really needed to get some of this stuff done. It was starting to become problematic for the actual smooth running of the base that I didn't have all of this stuff done, and it was slowing down production. But as you can see, we're well on the way to a solid mid-game. We've got about 66 tons of gold, 60 tons of iron, plenty of raw resources, except for the iron ore. I'd prefer a bit more of that. We got 100 tons of ceramic, 300 tons of coal. Where's our clay? That should be under cultivatable soil. We got about 119 tons of clay. We're all going to turn into ceramic. 50 tons of diamond, 23 tons of steel. Steel we're still a bit short on. I'd prefer about another 10 tons of steel. But once we finish mining out the oil biome, after the petroleum boiler, of course, we should have enough steel to actually just smash space entirely. So I'll cut this out there. Next video we'll be doing petroleum boiling. See you then, and good luck.